Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the program, and we're live and national. So if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, join the combo. You can do that now, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez, and a shooting on a military base, massive investment in America, and more tariffs. Plus, we've got a superhero who's joining the ranks of the federal government. I'll get into that in a moment. But right now, I want to give you a clip from El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th president of these United States, announcing that Apple has made a $600 billion, that's billion with a B, $1 billion investment in the United States. Listen to this.
Today, Apple is announcing that it will invest $600 billion, that's with a B, in the United States over the next 4 years. That's $100 billion more than they were originally going to invest. These investments will directly create more than 20,000 brand new American jobs and many thousands more at the Apple suppliers like Corning, Broadcom, Texas Instruments, and Samsung.
Mr. President, thank you very much for having me here today. You've been a great advocate for American innovation and manufacturing, and I'm grateful for your leadership and your commitment. That's a commitment we share at Apple because American innovation is central to everything we do.
Well, would you look at that, right? And again, I'll say this till until the cows come home. Remember when Barack Obama said they're not going to bring what's he going to? Hold on. Let me be clear. What's he going to do? Wave a magic wand? Right? That's what he said about President Trump bringing American companies to bring manufacturing back. And lo and behold, we've got American companies. We've got all sorts of companies that are coming into America. Why? Because Trump has strong-armed them with tariffs. I think it's a fantastic thing. So kudos to El Trompito and Tim Cook at the White House announcing an additional $100 billion on top of the $500 billion that we already knew about to expand U.S. operations for Apple. Good for them. Now, other thing I want to get into is this radical Islam. Right now, these Islamists, right? This is not your run-of-the-mill, your friend that's a Muslim. These are the people that want to destroy, that they use their faith in order to destroy everyone else, right? They use it as a tool, as a crutch, as a cudgel, if you will, to get after whatever political end they have. Now, I know there's some people out there that think that there's no difference between regular Muslims and radical Islamists, and I'm not part of that crew. But I will say this, that there's a trend in these radicals that they become United States military members, and then they go and they shoot up military bases. Now, I don't have all the details, but I do have a report on this. Check this out.
The Texas Democrats who left the state in
taxpayer dollars funded questionable projects abroad, including a
shortly before 11 o'clock, an active duty soldier assigned to Fort Stewart, Georgia, shot and wounded 5 of his fellow soldiers here on Fort Stewart. Thankfully, all are in stable condition and all are expected to recover. The alleged shooter is in custody. We have reestablished security. I have lifted all lockdown measures on Fort Stewart, and there is currently no threat to the local community. Our wounded soldiers were initially evacuated to Wynn Army Community Hospital right here on Fort Stewart. All arrived in stable condition, and 3 of the 5 required surgical intervention. 2 have been transported to Memorial Hospital in Savannah, Georgia for additional care. We have identified the alleged shooter as Sergeant Cornelius Radford, an automated logistics sergeant assigned to 2nd Brigade Combat Team. Sergeant Radford has not previously deployed to combat. Sergeant Radford has been interviewed by the Army Criminal Investigation Division and is currently in pretrial confinement, awaiting a charging decision by the Office of the Special Trial Counsel. I would also like to thank the brave soldiers who immediately intervened and subdued the shooter. These soldiers, without a doubt, prevented further casualties. And what we know is this soldier, the shooting occurred at the soldier's place of work. It did involve his co-workers. We're still not certain about the motivations, but again, he's been interviewed by Army investigators. But I know that his soldiers in the area that witnessed the shooting immediately and without hesitation tackled the soldier, subdued him, that allowed law enforcement to then take him into custody.
The Army sergeant accused of opening fire at Fort Stewart Base in Georgia wounded 5 fellow soldiers. As you heard, they took him down. The soldiers witnessed the shooting and immediately jumped in. And again, that clip you heard was Brigadier General John Lubas explaining what was going on at a press conference outside the base earlier today. And according to reports, they don't know what motivated the shooter. And like I said in the past, we've had a number of these base shootings that were motivated by people that have become radicalized by their, religious political ideology. And this individual, I'm not sure if it's going to be similar to the others. If I had to put my money on it, I'd say there's probably a link somewhere, because that seems to be the trend. Now, again, his name, Cornelius Radford. Cornelius spelled the same as you would spell Quran, Q-U-O-R, Cornelius Radford. And he is, he's been in the Army for a little bit. And as we get more information, I'm going to bring it to you. But there's a lot of just interesting things here, right? This is a very unfortunate thing. Thankfully, it wasn't worse. But the folks on base are looking into certain reports that he had a DUI charge back in May. But it was kept under wraps. His chain of command wasn't aware of that. So they're not sure if that plays into what's going on here. So we'll keep you posted. But these are things that just shouldn't happen, right? I mean, like Fort Hood, it just shouldn't happen. These things should not happen, yet they're happening. So that's that. Now, speaking of being sympathetic to radical Islam, there's a candidate for mayor in New York City who is very sympathetic to radical Islam. He's taken the side of Hamas. He constantly is on the side of those that are causing the terror and the mayhem in the Middle East. And his name, Zoran Mamdani. And Mr. Mamdani, like other candidates in the race, can receive matching funds in the election through the New York City Campaign Finance Board. Well, would you know that Mamdani, who is the Democrat nominee, and his opponent, Curtis Sliwa, who was the Republican nominee, well, he got beat. He got beat by Curtis Sliwa. Curtis Sliwa receiving $1.9 million in matching funds from the New York City Campaign Finance Board, and Mamdani coming in behind him at $1.6 million, at least as I know how to read it. I'm no mathematician, but it looks like he got spanked there. So I want to get into that, and I want to get into so much more of what's going on in New York City with this race that really is going to have impact all over the country. And more people are starting to realize this is not a joke, this election for mayor in the city of New York. This is not something we should take lightly. Everybody in America should be skipping a meal and donating $25, $50, do what you can to Curtis Sliwa's campaign. Because in a few short weeks, when this campaign is in full swing, advertisements online, advertisements on radio, advertisements on TV, the money's going to flow fast. And are we going to allow the likes of Elizabeth Warren to trump patriots like you and me? I certainly hope not. Anyway, keep it locked right here. We're coming right back with our buddy, Curtis Sliwa.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mamdani, are you going to support him?
I have learned a long time ago, let New York politics be New York politics. We got enough challenges in Jersey. I got a governor's race. I'm supporting Mikey Sherrill. I got legislative races. That's where my energy is going to go going into November. New York City, I love you. You're my neighbor. You're about 10 miles from where I live. You guys figure out your elections. I'm going to focus on mine.
That is United States Senator Cory Booker from Newark, New Jersey. And he says, I'm not getting involved in New York. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not getting involved. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm a kid from Brooklyn that's living in Jersey, and I am getting involved. I am welcoming Mr. Mamdani to come on this program once a week until Election Day, as I am welcoming Curtis Sliwa to join us on this program once a week until the election, because there's always something to talk about that's going to affect this country. Today's big news, while Booker's not getting involved, you know who else isn't getting involved? The New York City Campaign Finance Board has denied Eric Adams yet again matching funds. I want to get some reaction to that from the guy who just stomped and spanked Mamdani, 1.9 million to 1.6 million. Curtis Sliwa out raising Mr. Mamdani and matching funds from the New York City Campaign Finance Board. Curtis Sliwa, welcome back.
Oh, thank you, Rich Valdez. Hands across America with the liberty-loving Latino. And just 6 weeks ago, with the unexpected victory of Zoran Mamdani in the Democratic primary against Andrew, I mailed it in, Cuomo, everybody was saying, drop out, Curtis, drop out. You can't win. You can't raise money. And the figures came in today, and not only did I raise money more than Adams or Cuomo or anybody else, more than the guy that everybody is going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs about, Zoran Mamdani. Oh, he's a fundraising machine. Well, guess what? I raised more money this time, and I'll continue to raise more money because I am the Republican candidate, and Republicans realize that's how we beat the three Democrats with a Republican, because Adams, Cuomo, Mamdani agree on most issues. They want illegal aliens to vote. I want legal citizens to vote. They believe in a sanctuary city. I don't believe in a sanctuary city. And we can start going right on down the line as I tell our fellow Republicans, you want patriotism, you want law and order, you want a candidate that backs the blue. There's only one, and it's the Republican candidate, Curtis Sliwa. And now the Republicans are coming home, Rich. They realize they have no other options.
Well, listen, Curtis Sliwa, I think this is where I've been, and anybody who's listening to this program for the first time, welcome. If you've been here for a while, you know that I've been very bullish on Curtis Sliwa's campaign for mayor of the city of New York for many reasons. One, because I know you and I know your character, but B, I realize that there isn't a bit of daylight between Andrew Cuomo. He's an old Italian guy with nipple piercings, and he's just like Zoran Mamdani, who's a Ugandan immigrant, but their politics are nearly identical. When you throw in Eric Adams, again, a different patina on the outside, but the same politics on the inside. So the question really becomes, who actually provides any contrast? And the only one that does that is Curtis Sliwa.
Thank you, Rich. And the reason that Cuomo hides and barely ever campaigns is he knows there are people out there who are ready to confront him and talk about how, why, Cuomo, were you slapping fannies and killing grannies? He's not up for dealing with that kind of folks who are asking proper questions. He did it when he was governor. He fled Albany. He feared impeachment. And now he's coming back like a political zombie, having lost to Zoran Mamdani the first time. And he goes, well, I didn't try hard enough, but I'll try better this time. Why would you ever trust the creep, the crook Eric Adams, or the commie Zoran Mamdani? How about Curtis Sliwa, or, as I like to say, especially to the liberty-loving Latinos and Latinas out there, Curtis Sliwa.
Amigos, we're on with Curtis Sliwa. And most people don't know how to say Curtis's last name, and it's often mispronounced as Silva instead of Sliwa. And he was once confused for a Puerto Rican, and they asked him to be like the Grand Marshal of a Puerto Rican festival. That's a great story, Curtis. And I want to just remind people that this election, you're right. This started off with people saying, oh, my goodness, Curtis has to drop out and make way for Eric Adams. Eric Adams has been sucking wind in every single poll that's come out. It's clear as day. Not only does he not know how to speak, but he also doesn't know how to govern the city, which is why he couldn't win his own party's nomination. Move on. You get Cuomo. Like you said, slapping fannies and killing grannies. He couldn't be trusted. We've seen what he can do with a state when he was governor and what he thinks of the New York people. We see what he thinks of the New York City people in the fact that he wasn't even trying to win, saying, oh, I ran a bad campaign. He doesn't care. He's lazy, and his politics mirror that of Mamdani. So I believe that you've got your work cut out for you. And I'm wondering, and I don't know if you can make these predictions or not, but do you think that one of these guys wises up and says, hey, look, I'm out of here. I'm going to make it a three-man race?
No. Their egos won't permit them to do that. They're all independent candidates. Remember, they haven't won the Democratic Party line, but they're still Democrats. So they'll continue to battle each other each day, arguing who should drop out. And every day they do that, it's a good day for Zoran Mamdani because you don't focus on the issues that differentiate them from him, which aren't all that many. Now, when it comes to me, I differ with him on everything. First off, he says he wants free bus fare in New York City. Well, let me tell you something, Rich Valdez. You've been in New York City. Half the people don't pay their fare to begin with. They're fare evaders. With Curtis Sliwa, you get arrested when you don't pay your fare. With the other candidates, Adams, Cuomo, Mamdani, no. They're just poor, impoverished youth. You know, we have to think about maybe we'll have a free bus fare, free subway fare. And then who the hell is going to pay for that, Rich? You know, that money doesn't just fall from the sky. They're very good at spending money that they do not have access to, except, you know, it's going to come out of the pockets of the blue-collar working class who cannot escape to Florida. The rich, they'll always have a haven. They'll always have a second option. They'll always hedge while they're meeting with Zoran Mamdani in quiet locations. But it's the constituency that supports me. The new constituency of the Trump Republican Party, the blue-collar working class people who are going to stay and fight and improve and not move.
Well, you know, Curtis Sliwa, I think that's the real bottom line. New York City is a very interesting place where you'll get guys that are pipe fitters, steam fitters, plumbers, carpenters, guys that are blue-collar Democrats, and they voted for Trump, and they're likely going to vote for you because you are the man of the people. You are the people's mayor. You're the real populist candidate here that isn't a, for lack of a better word, there's a lot of distance between you and me, right? I would never say you're a radical right-winger, but I would say your policies are right on the money because you're a true blue New Yorker. So, amigos, we're coming right back with Curtis Sliwa. I want to talk a little bit about why Mayor Adams can't qualify for matching funds. I also want to get the scoop on the increased activism that's going on. There's more pro-Hamas protesting going on in the city. Is this coming from Zoran Mamdani? I want to get the scoop from Curtis Sliwa. He's here with us. Amigos, check out his website, sliwa4nyc.com. That's SLIWA 4FOR NYC.com, sliwa4nyc.com. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez, coming right back with Curtis Sliwa.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Despite his role as the world's chief diplomat, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is failing to use the full power of his office to stop the atrocities in Gaza. That is the main message from these protesters who are taking the message directly to the Secretary General, standing outside his official residence here in New York City.
We try to put pressure on the U.S. government. We try to put pressure on all nations because AIPAC is incredibly powerful, but the UN has incredible power to act beyond Security Council, and so we've kind of communicated a list of demands, and we're trying to put pressure on Guterres. He does, in fairness, make statements every day condemning Israeli actions, but statements aren't enough.
So they're trying to condemn the Israeli actions, the anti-Jew protest, pro-Hamas protesting going on all over New York City. This is Mamdani's dream. However, I would say, name the place with more Jews than Israel. I think it's New York City, followed by like Florida. Curtis Sliwa, welcome back. How does this protesting and all of this anti-Israel sentiment play into this upcoming election?
Well, let's just look at the three Democrats, starting with Zohran Mamdani. Andrew Cuomo, the way he's reacted to it, he's now backed away from Bibi Netanyahu and backed away from supporting Israel, saying, well, maybe it's not as bad, the anti-Semitism, as I said it was during the primary. Yeah, once he collected all the money by patronizing the Jews. And then Eric Adams, this is almost funny, in a podcast with a pro-Zohran Mamdani woman, he was saying, I really loved the time I had dinner with Zohran Mamdani and his father, who's a professor at Columbia University. They were great. I was asking him, what was Idi Amin really like in Uganda? I was always fascinated by Idi Amin. Idi Amin? This guy was a cannibal. He would eat his enemies, and when he had a full belly, he would throw them to the crocodiles in the Nile. He hated Jews. When he finally had to flee Uganda because Tanzania invaded, he was given sanctuary behind the walls of the House of Fraud, the Saudi princes in Saudi Arabia. Oh, my God. And he's also said, I'm the only mayor who has ever visited Palestine. So naturally, all the Jews who had donated money to Eric Adams said, there is no Palestine. It's either Judea or Samaria or the West Bank. There is no place called Palestine. So you see how fraudulent these Democrats are. When anti-Semitism was a big issue, when the marauding demonstrators, pro-Palestinian, were singing from the river to the sea, Intifada, 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 Palestine will be free. Oh, they were condemning them. Now that the polls indicate, well, New Yorkers aren't all that thrilled with Bibi Netanyahu and Israel over Gaza, notice how they're changing. Me, I'm standing. I stand with Israel. I stand with Bibi because they're eliminating the enemies that we would have to eventually face. Because when they come out of the mosque on Fridays, the day of prayer, Rich, this is what they say in Tehran and all those locations. Death to the little Satan Israel, death to the big Satan America.
Yeah, 100% true. Curtis Sliwa is our guest. He's a candidate for mayor in New York City. He's a broadcasting legend in New York City and an executive in the nonprofit sector, the founder of the Guardian Angels Safety Patrol Group. And Curtis Sliwa, let everybody know the size of this organization and how many places it reaches.
Yeah, well, we started in February 1979. I was the night manager of Mickey D's in the Bronx. There were no cops at night on the subways. We began to patrol the trains, eventually expanded to all 5 boroughs that make up New York City, and then slowly but surely were invited into other cities. After 46 years of volunteer service, we are now in 13 countries. We've had chapters in 130 cities, and we continue to patrol the streets, the parks, and mostly the subways in New York City. A lot of the time, we're tending to the homeless and the emotionally disturbed that the city has abandoned and the state has abandoned. Boy, they found $7 billion to care for the illegal aliens, but seemingly they can't find enough money to take care of our own Americans. That is a disgrace. Shame on us that we would let our own Americans, some of them veterans, sleep in parks, sleep in the streets, and sleep in the subways.
Yeah, it's a shame. And, Curtis Sliwa, of all those candidates that are running, you're the only candidate that actually worked alongside America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, back in the 90s to clean up New York City, working, hand in hand, elbow in elbow with America's mayor. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when Rudy Giuliani was the biggest gangbuster in the history of the Department of Justice as the U.S. Attorney of the Southern District in New York City, he was observing the Guardian Angels from afar when Ed Koch was the mayor and he was our adversary. And he said publicly, I don't understand this. The Guardian Angels are the sons and daughters of New Yorkers. They're volunteers, mostly black and Hispanics from the inner city. Why are we a detriment to them being able to help the police solve the ever-growing crime problem. Remember, at that time, 2,100 people were murdered each year. There were 10,000 unsolved shootings, far worse than it is today. And once he became mayor, he changed that, embraced us. And whenever we would be asked to go to another city, Rudy would get on the phone with that mayor or that police commissioner and say, they are not vigilantes. It is not a gang. I work with them in New York City. If you're lucky enough to develop a Guardian Angel chapter, you will have an excellent auxiliary unit to your police department. And because he was Mr. Law and Order and America's mayor after the attack on 9/11, many, many cities embraced us that would originally have given us a hard time.
Curtis Sliwa, I want to, you mentioned that you were the night manager as a young man, as a teenager, when you started this stuff, of the Guardian Angels Safety Patrol Group, and you were in the Bronx. And speaking of the Bronx, I may or may not have it on some good authority from the management company that operates a building in Parkchester where it's believed that Mr. Riley and Ms. AOC All-Out Crazy Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez live in Parkchester when they're not in Washington, D.C. And it may or may not be true that they snuck a washer dryer into their apartment when they're not allowed to have one in violation of the building's rules and the Green New Deal. Would you believe that?
I would. In fact, remember, you saw the funeral and wake for the police officer killed in the line of duty by that maniac who came in from Las Vegas and stormed that office building where the NFL was housed, Officer Islam of the 47th Precinct. That's AOC's district. She didn't go to the wake of the funeral because, of course, she's a cop hater. And by the way, after that wake and funeral that I attended, at the end of which there was a torrential downpour, I walked through the condos of Parkchester, and I was showing pictures of AOC, the one that you first labeled, and then I basically took the trademark and copyright and used it all over the country, all over the world. AOC, All-Out Crazy Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, leader of the Socialists of America. I showed the picture and say, have you seen AOC here? Nobody ever sees her. So It's interesting that you've been able to pin her and her boy toy down to one of those condos in Parkchester. But I got to tell you, Rich Valdez, you know me. I know every square inch of the 5 boroughs and 350 communities that make up New York City. I scoured Parkchester. Nobody has seen or heard of her in any one of those condo complexes.
Yeah, well, I think it's really him. They say he lives there because I guess she spends all of her time in a really nice place that's in Alexandria or just outside of D.C., a really fancy place. So she's got a place to crash with him when she comes to the district. Folks, we're on with Curtis Sliwa, but they have smuggled in contraband. They have a washing machine. How dare they?
I thought for sure that AOC, in solidarity with her compatriots in third world countries, would have been hanging up the wash on a clothesline like your mother did, like my mother did, which was the tradition in Brooklyn and the Bronx. But naturally, AOC was never from the Bronx. She was Sandy Ocasio from one of the richest areas of Westchester. She was not like Jenny on the block, Jennifer Lopez, who grew up in Castle Hill in the Bronx, went to President High School. No, AOC, she's a made-up Bronxite.
Yeah, very similar to Mr. Mamdani, who is not a native New Yorker in any way.
No, a trust fund baby who decided to go back to his homeland because he's a gentried landowner like his parents there in a land where they kill gays and lesbians. Now, why would you return as the number one progressive, liberal, democratic socialist in New York State now, anointed by AOC to become the next mayor of New York City and destroy us as she has destroyed her congressional district? Why would you decide to go to a country where if you happen to be gay or lesbian, they kill you? He said nothing. And then when he was in his compound, because he owns land there, he was protected by commandos sent over by the president of Uganda who are carrying loaded AK-47s, and they were wearing masks. Oh, the sanctimonious hypocrite that he is.
Now, he's accepted the security provided by NYPD, but you've turned it down. Is that right?
Well, first off, he not only has accepted it, he now likes to be driven around in the SUV. His days of turning the streets of New York City into a mosh pit are over, protected by the armed NYPD that he hates. And meantime, I'm always in the subways. He was never in the subways. Eric Adams is never in the subways. And Andrew Cuomo is always in the Hamptons. He's Hamptons Andy Cuomo. So I have direct access to the real people, the blue-collar working class people when you ride the subways. Some will give you the finger. Some will pat you so hard on the back you got to go for a chiropractic adjustment. And a lot of other people will cross-examine you when those doors close, and you better have answers for them.
That's right. Now, Curtis Sliwa, with seconds to go on the clock, I want you to let everybody know. I know you're focusing on crime. You're focusing on restoring law and order. You're focusing on making it a great place to be once again. And people who want to support your campaign and reach deep into their pocket and send you $1,000, $500, $100, how do they do it? Where do they go?
Oh, anyway, it's Improve, Don't Move in New York. You stand and fight for what you know is right. Go to Sliwa for NYC.com. That's Sliwa, SLIWA, the word for NYC.com. Whatever you can spare, we can use that moolah shmoolah. We can use those shimolis. We can use those ducats to fight the socialist Zohar Mandami, because not only do I have momentum, I outraised him in fundraising this last quarter. And most importantly, when you add the last four polls together, the cumulative of the polls, I'm soaring. Eric Adams has crashed. Andrew Cuomo is now gliding down, and Zohar Mandami has plateaued out. I'm going to win this election, and I'm going to attribute it to my hands across America, to the liberty-loving Latino, and all the times you've had me on the air across the nation, Rich Valdez.
God bless you, my brother. Folks, help out Curtis Sliwa. You're helping out New York City. Honestly, you're helping America. You're helping yourselves, and you're helping your grandkids. You can't you lose New York City, we lose the country. Curtis, God bless you, my brother. Sliwa for NYC.com.
Anytime, Rich.
Yes, sir. Amigos, we're coming right back with your calls. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company this evening. And we're live and national. If you want to join me on our late night national town hall conversation, give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to get your perspective on this stuff. Obviously, socialism in America has always been very taboo, at least in my lifetime. I want to know, Elizabeth Warren's out here saying that Mamdani, and I don't know, did we have that audio, Mr. Good, of Elizabeth Warren? I think it was yesterday, the day before. But she was saying Mr. Mamdani is the face of the party. He's where the direction the party is headed in. And, of course, Elizabeth Warren is a huge lefty, right? She's one of the biggest left-wing senators out there. And so it comes as no surprise if her or Bernie Sanders say something outlandish like this, right? Because their solution to every problem anybody's ever faced is we're going to use the government to fix it, right? And obviously that means more tax dollars, less money in your paycheck. And listen to this.
This is a man who ran for mayor of New York City by saying, what will make New York City work better for working people? That's what this campaign is all about. And when Andrew Cuomo is shocked to discover that's actually what New Yorkers want, and that he thinks the right response is get me some billionaires to put some money in to put a stop to that, that says a lot about Andrew Cuomo and who he thinks New York City should work for. So anybody who thinks New York City should work only for the billionaires probably should go with Andrew Cuomo, but anybody who thinks it should work for the people of New York City who are here doing the work every day, for the families who want to live in this city and be able to afford housing and childcare, anyone who thinks that the role of the mayor is to make life work better for working people should be here with Zoran.
All right, so this is very, very good right here, right? Elizabeth Warren's putting it out there. You just heard her say, and this is, I'm going to say, an admission of her Marxism. She said his job is to make New York City better for working people, and she threw billionaires under the bus in the same sentence. Now, why does that matter to me? I'm going to tell you why. Not because I don't like workers and I like billionaires. No, it's because I like Americans. I love Americans, and guess what? In this country, you can be what they call a worker, and you can become a billionaire. And that's how life works in America. Workers of the world unite. Have you heard that? Right? It was Evita Peron used to say that, but who started that? Well, it's a well-known political slogan that originated where? In a book called The Communist Manifesto by a guy named Karl Marx. And all of these Marxists that follow Marx and Engels, this is their call for uniting the working class, as they call it. And they created this class structure, right? So when you hear people say the middle class, the working class, that's Marxism. I try not to use that language. Every now and again I might stumble, but I don't want to use that. Why? Because I don't believe that there is this permanent working class, that you're either in one group or the other. I believe you can be in one group and be in the next 10 years by working hard, making solid investments, doing what you got to do. I grew up extraordinarily poor, and I'm not a billionaire, but I'm still a worker, right? I'm working here right now. But my point is, you can make life better for you and your family without putting all of this emphasis on separating society into these segments like they do. So Elizabeth Warren is making an outright call for people that believe in Marxism to support Mamdani. And the question is, are you going to be one of them? And I know a lot of people listening going, listen, Rich, it's all right. Stop with all this New York stuff. We're listening all across the country. This is a nationwide impact this election is going to have. You get a socialist in New York City, you're going to get one somewhere else. You're going to get one in California. You're going to get one in Chicago. And it's going to trickle down. You're going to go from one left-leaning liberal to straight-up Marxist sympathizing, Marxist preferring type of progressive. And that's just going to cost you money. These people don't create any business. They don't do anything. They just take, and that money they're taking is yours. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. I want to go to the phones, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Paul, streaming the show. Boise, Idaho in the building, richvaldez.com. Go right ahead, Paul.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich. Really
sir.
Good lead in. I came in just a little late, but every time you got Curtis on there, man, he gets me on the edge of the seat. I listen to every word. I don't know how I'm going to be able to mail him the money, but I'd like to be able to throw $50 into the pocket of the wine, dine, and pocket line. And yeah, he's a good man. You let me listen to him and talk to him on the radio one night. That was awesome. But
outstanding.
You know, as far as what happened today about the servicemen doing what he did,
it's a disgrace.
I feel really strongly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm sorry, Paul. With the music means we got to go. But you're right. It is a disgrace, and we should all feel strongly that should absolutely never happen. It should not happen. Paul, thank you for being such a patriot. Godspeed to you, my brother. And amigos, we continue the conversation straight ahead. But for some of you, it's the end of the road. So to you, I say, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. God bless you, America.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. We're back for another hour. Thought you got rid of me. Fooled you. Anyway, I'm here, and we're live, and we're national, and here's the phone number if you want to join us on our late-night national town hall conversation, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And let's see, what's some of the big news today? A lot of things we're talking about right now. But Trump and his good friend, I think it's Narendra Modi, right? President, Prime Minister of India. Well, he said, hey, you keep buying Russian oil, and I'm going to keep tariffing you. And guess what? They had a 25% tariff. Trump just doubled it, now 50%. And these people love Trump. The Indians love Trump. Trump's not playing games. We have to cut off the lifeblood of the war machine, as he says. And he's right. This is how you play this game. At least that's how he plays this game. And let me tell you, it's a lot easier to play it the way Trump is playing it than the way we've played it in the past, which is more threats, more war. And listen, I'm a hawkish guy, but I can tell you that it's probably better for everybody if we don't do that, right? It just makes sense. We prevent the loss of life. I mean, to me, it's the simplest idea in the world. And I'm all for sticking up for yourself. I'm all for that stuff. But at the end of the day, most people don't want their pocketbooks hurt. So Trump knows exactly how to get these people going with hitting them where it hurts the most. And what was the other thing I was talking about here? Hold on, stand with me. Of course, the story, the Army sergeant that was accused of carrying out a mass shooting at Fort Stewart left 5 people injured. His name is Cornelius with a QU. And we don't know why he did it. At least the motive has been quiet as kept thus far. But in the past, we've seen this, and it has been folks that have subscribed to radical Islam were, dissatisfied in one way or another, some sort of radicalization. So obviously, if we see a trend, and again, this may or may not fit the trend, but it's still a trend. Soldiers shooting up people on base. Not a good look. This wasn't something I grew up seeing, right? It's a relatively new way of attacking. So you can't get ahead of everything. I get that. But you can definitely keep an eye out on things. And I realize it's difficult to recruit people. Trust me, I get that. When I was a small business owner, I had a tough time recruiting good people. We see every day they're giving $50,000 signing bonuses to become an ICE person and an ICE agent. And they literally just got one of epic proportion. I mentioned this in the other hour, and I want to get into it. I can't get into it right just yet. But literally like a superhero becoming an ICE agent. And that's a pretty cool story. But there's other stuff, right? Because Apple announced $100 billion more in their U.S. manufacturing investment, bringing the total up to $600 billion over the next whatever amount of years. That's fantastic. I mean, we should be doing cartwheels over stuff like that, right? This is when the Democrats, especially Obama, said, what's Trump going to do, wave a magic wand? And guess what? He's waving that magic wand. I like to joke and say, it's a MAGA wand. He waves a MAGA wand. Obama must be so angry. Or maybe he's not. Maybe he really loves America. And he's like, you know what, man? I didn't believe he could do it, but he did it. Good for him. I somehow doubt that. But I'm trying to be nice here. And let me see what else we got here. Oh, here we go. A little bit of a bochinche for you. The reigning Miss USA is accusing a Republican congressman of threatening to make public nude images of her. Oh, my goodness. There was just a bill passed about this. I hope that's not the case. This is I think I've spoken with this guy in the past. He seems like a decent guy. So hopefully Miss USA is not telling the truth or mistaken. But we'll see what happens. We'll get to the bottom of it for show. Anyway, on to some other things. There's a clip of audio I want to play for you because Democrats in Chicago have now followed through on the evacuation of a hotel where all the Texas Democrats were staying. Why? There was a bomb threat. Listen to this.
The Texas Democrats who left the state in protest of the redistricting bill were temporarily evacuated this morning from their Illinois hotel after a bomb threat. Police say it happened in St. Charles, which is west of Chicago, at about 7:15, and that after a thorough search, no device was found. They say 400 people were immediately evacuated, and the area was secured as bomb squad units conducted their investigation.
So Democrats, again, are still not in Texas, right? And again, we were talking about that last night about, who's getting locked up and who's this. Politics is a big game of theater. And so many disingenuous people involved in it. And innately, right, I think instinctually, most people know this. And this is why innately and instinctively, most people don't gravitate to politics, right? I think most of the people listening to this show, especially a nighttime show like this, you're either in your house, got your feet kicked up, you're relaxing, maybe you're on your porch, maybe you're in your kitchen, but you're taking it easy, right? Unless you're in Hawaii, then maybe you're sitting in the car because it's drive time in Hawaii, or it's maybe after dinner time if you're in the Pacific Northwest, right? California area. But most people are working people, retired people, they're doing their thing. And that's good. It's a good thing. But they're not politicians. Now, we are live and national in the nation's capital, and those politicians, I love the politicians, they're great, right? They're called to do this work. They're good for this. But most people aren't. Most people don't get into this business because they realize this is a tough business, right? Just imagine having to get dressed up every day and be nice to people that are backstabbing you and saying bad things about you, right? And then you have to figure out how to say bad things about them with a smile while fighting back, I think about that, and I think, and then taking the high road like Mike Johnson always does, right? I never hear Mike Johnson say anything bad. Every now and again he'll say, oh, well, that's not true. But otherwise, he takes the high road on everything, and he seems to be getting it done. So kudos to Speaker Mike Johnson. But my point here is a lot of people who are less than honest get into this business. People that want to make a living off of stock trades, want to make a living off of not just the stock trades, but, the tips that help them make these killer trades. People that get apps named after them and that mimic their stock buying habits, right? Nancy Pelosi comes to mind. And I have to think, A, Nancy Pelosi's probably not listening to this show, and B, most of us are not Nancy Pelosi worth $413 million. Now, if you are, then call in and say, hey, Rich, maybe you're not worth $400 million, but I certainly am. Then good for you, brother. You're making the point I made earlier that only in America, right, you can really blow up like that, start off poor and end up being a $100 millionaire, a billionaire. Thank God. God bless America. It's a fantastic thing. Anyway, I went off on a few things there because, it's hump day, it's August, and I wanted to say those things. But the usual suspects are up to what they do all the time. Tom Homan is out there, and he's yelling at the judges, letting them know, stop being so radical and getting in our way. Zoran Mamdani, the madman himself, he is out there screaming about masked ICE agents because cops shouldn't cover their faces. Only criminals, right? It's just crazy, the stuff that comes up. And you got the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, saying that if Mamdani is elected, it's the end of New York City, an absolute train wreck. So we have plenty to discuss, and we're going to be getting into all of those conversations in a little bit. I also want to get into a discussion on what really happened with Mar-a-Lago, right? Because there's an inside scoop on all of that, and I want to get to that from somebody that's actually indicted for being Trump's attorney. She's got a book on the inside scoop on exactly what happened in Mar-a-Lago and exactly what the left is doing against Donald Trump and the lawfare that they're using. She's an expert at this stuff. She's an attorney. She's worked in media. She's a Marine Corps veteran, and she's coming up next. Christina Bobb joins us. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation, and I want to talk about all of this lawfare. There's all this stuff about the stuff we're hearing lately, right? We're hearing about Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard releasing information. Every day there's like a new trove of information that's being released. But that's now that the tables are starting to turn. A couple of years ago, the shoe was on the other foot, right? They were coming after Trump and everybody in Trump world with a vengeance. If you were even trying to defend the president, even legally as an attorney, they were trying to lock you up and throw away the key. And this stuff, I feel like it's erased. It's kind of gone from a lot of people's memory, and it shouldn't be, because what we saw was a travesty of justice that should never happen again, a miscarriage of justice. And we've seen multiple, so it's kind of hard to keep track of them. But somebody's recorded all of this into a book, and it's a good one. And we talked about our last book, but there's a new book called Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. Christina Bobb was indicted for being Trump's attorney. She is an attorney now with Judicial Watch. She's served in government. She's served in the Marine Corps. She worked at One America News as an election integrity reporter, and she's our guest right now. Christina Bobb, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So let's talk about this. And, of course, I'm sure you could bounce off a bunch of things that are happening in the news and tie them into your book, because your book really talks about the inside scoop of what happened with Mar-a-Lago, but I think so much of that lends itself so well to what we're seeing unfold today.
Oh my gosh, I could not have planned the better timing for this book if I had known what was going to happen. There was so much lawfare going on that I wasn't allowed to release this information because there were indictments. I was indicted, the president was indicted. I mean, my criminal case is still open. There's still a bunch of criminal cases open that the media conveniently is not discussing anymore, despite the fact that they're happening. So I just wasn't allowed to put the information out. And then, I went and met with the president and said, hey, can I put the book out? And he said yes. And then he did the forward for it, which I'm really excited about. And then after, it went to print, then everything broke. And it was like, holy cow, I couldn't have planned this better if I tried. So it's very timely, and will give you, the reader, anybody who reads it, will give you a much better understanding of what's actually happening right now and why what Tulsi Gabbard and Pam Bondi and them are doing is so important.
Well, you know better than most. Let's start where you think it's most appropriate. I don't know if you want to start where you start your story in the book or pick some other point, but walk us through this kind of timeline of events and exactly how this went down.
Yeah, so most of the book is about the Mar-a-Lago, and not just the raid, but the events leading up to it. I was the custodian of records for the raid, for the documents that were produced prior to the raid. With President Trump's defense counsel, I met with the Department of Justice and the FBI. We had a meeting at Mar-a-Lago a couple months before the raid. I tell you the whole thing about that. I've got text messages and emails in there giving you the whole timeline. I lay it all out so you can see exactly how it happened. And, everyone, I'm sure, spoiler alert, you'll be shocked to know the raid was completely inappropriate. It should never have happened in the first place. And they kind of got stuck because it was clear that they were trying to bring a case against Donald Trump in Washington, D.C., and they thought the raid would support that. The grand jury was opened in Washington, D.C. I was forced to testify before the grand jury, and I had to go to D.C. I was living in Florida at the time, but I had to go to D.C. to testify. And the raid just failed, quite honestly. They didn't get what they needed to bring a case against Donald Trump. So,
let me push back there. Well, you say it didn't get anything. It availeth nothing. However, I'm going to say it gave them, in my opinion, the photo shoot that they were looking to do, where they rearranged boxes, put them near the bathroom, said that this is how he had things, and tried to make him look like a slob and tried to malign him in the media.
Yeah, they did do that, but they didn't
No
get
smoking
enough
gun.
information. There was nothing they could even indict him on, not just no smoking gun. I mean, you can indict a ham sandwich, as the saying goes, right? But they weren't even able to get an indictment against him in Washington, D.C., which is why they moved the grand jury down to Florida, because at least in Florida they could get this mishandling of classified documents, even though it was all fake and everybody knew it was fake. You know, you can get that type of indictment in Florida, which they wouldn't have been able to do in Washington, D.C., because that didn't take place in Washington, D.C. They really wanted, to your point, they wanted some type of classified documents that they could use for like an espionage, Hillary Clinton email scandal type case in Washington, D.C., and it just didn't exist. It didn't exist. It wasn't there.
Yeah, and again, and the whole plan to try and make it look like he was sloppy, he was flippant, he was careless with what he was doing, and then take it directly to the media. And, of course, storming the Bastille with a SWAT team. I mean, it really was the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my life with a sitting president or a former president.
It was, for sure. I mean, I was infuriated throughout the whole process. I mean, it was a horrible day. It was a sad day. And the whole thing was a lie. I mean, the way they got the warrant was a lie. The discussions we had with them prior to, they lied about that for the warrant. They lied about it in the media. Everything that the media portrayed to the American people was a lie. And I've got the receipts, and I want everybody to understand how bad this is. And, they really screwed themselves by doing this, because now the Department of Justice has jurisdiction in Florida to indict everybody involved down in Florida, which I'm sure they do not want to face criminal charges in Florida, but they're gonna.
Folks, we're on with Christina Bobb. She was indicted for being President Trump's attorney. She's an attorney with Judicial Watch. She's a former One America News reporter and a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. Christina Bobb, I want you to stick with me, because I want to pick up right there where we're leaving off with what happens now, right, with all of these grand juries that have been impaneled, Pam Bondi stepping into things, Tulsi Gabbard declassifying things, all sorts of things happening. You've got Kash Patel and Dan Bongino over at the FBI, shaking trees, seeing what's falling out, and a different story every day on so many fronts. So, folks, we're coming right back with Christina Bobb, attorney with Judicial Watch, and me, Rich Valdez. Keep it locked right here.
The best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The Justice Department now tapping a grand jury to look into the intelligence community's assessment of what was happening with Russia. Is that you have nothing to do with directing the Justice Department?
No, I have nothing to do. Pam is doing a great job. I have nothing to do with it. I will tell you this. They deserve it. I was happy to hear it. I actually read it just like you did. I have nothing to do with it. But what they did in the election, what they did in even the last election, but it was too big to rig. But what they did in the 2020 election is grotesque.
That's President Trump on CNBC discussing the grand jury investigation into the Russia collusion hoax. And he says he's very happy to hear that there was a grand jury impaneled. And I want to pick up right there and continue talking about Christina Bobb's new book. Of course, Christina Bobb, former attorney for President Trump and indicted for being his attorney with Judicial Watch as well. She was at OAN. She's a Marine Corps veteran, and she's our guest right now, live on the line. She's got a brand new book called Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. Christina Bobb, You just heard President Trump, saying he's not directing Pam Bondi's efforts as Attorney General. And I want you to help connect some of the dots, because, in my opinion, all of this stuff is so interrelated.
Oh yeah, it's all one ongoing conspiracy. And as far as getting the grand jury down in Florida, which I don't think they've announced the location yet, but I think everybody's assuming it's in Florida or going to be in Florida. There's probably half a dozen ways at least that they can connect it to Florida. But if we just start with the documents that Tulsi Gabbard produced showing that Barack Obama directed basically altering of the intelligence that the intelligence community had and say, no, we want you to flip it on its head. He directed that in 2016 in order to thwart the incoming president, which turned into the Russia hoax, which turned into the Mueller investigation, which didn't produce anything, that led into the Ukraine hoax, which also didn't produce anything, which led into the whole January 6th hoax, which continued all the way through Jack Smith. I mean, it is all connected, and it's one big conspiracy to try to stop Donald Trump and stop his presidency. So yeah, it's all connected, and anywhere that any aspect of that conspiracy takes place can have jurisdiction, which includes the raid on Mar-a-Lago. So yep, they've got this in Florida, and I would be quite scared if I were anybody involved in any of that.
So this is fascinating, right? So you go back to the beginning of the onion, if you will, as you're peeling back the layers. Yep. And you're right on, right? You're saying that because they started it way back when and ended up doing all of these things, and the raid on Mar-a-Lago now allows them to do what they did to him, to change the venue, to get the indictment in Florida. And I think Florida's not going to be very friendly toward them. It's kind of like, a Republican in the D.C. area, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the closest analogy you could get, maybe Texas, but Texas might even be friendlier to Democrats than Florida. I think Florida is probably the reddest district in the country right now. So the biggest mistake they ever made was raiding Mar-a-Lago. I think they got very, very arrogant. They didn't think they'd ever be held accountable. And they thought they could do whatever they want with impunity and get away with it. And the worst part about it for them is they got nothing out of the raid other than headlines. I mean, they didn't actually recover any evidence that showed any wrongdoing on the part of Donald Trump, so that they got nothing for it. And now they're subject to jurisdiction in Florida, which I'm loving every second of that. So, yeah, it'll be fun to see how it goes.
Christina Bobb, I have a question for you. I'm very skeptical oftentimes about anybody ever getting held accountable, because it's kind of the way the swamp does. And this would be a really big step in actually changing that, actually getting judges that would do that. And oftentimes on this program, I say, look, where are you going to find these people that are willing to put their careers on the line to put people in jail? But I think they may exist in Florida because it's not D.C. It's so far removed from the swamp. Would you agree?
Yeah. I do agree. It is a question mark, and I share your concern. But this is the test for our nation right now. I mean, I think President Trump's entire legacy depends on this, whether he saves our justice system or not. Because if they're not held accountable, they never will be. There's not going to be another Donald Trump that comes along in our lifetime that can withstand the pressure and withstand the attacks to try to actually fight back on this issue. J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard, no matter how great they are as cabinet members, they can't do what Donald Trump does. And so we need this to take place during this term. And I think this is how President Trump will be remembered. He either restores our justice system or not. And I hope he does. It looks like this administration's on the right path. I mean, I think they're moving fast enough. You can never move too fast in a situation like this, but the fact that they got the grand jury open, roughly 6 months after getting into office, I think is a really good sign. So they need to keep moving quickly, keep the pace up, but I hope they're successful in this. I mean, our nation needs them to be.
Christina Bobb, what does this look like to you? And again, I don't know how much you're willing to share or how much you can share, but as an observer from my position, I would say, they typically, with Jack Smith, they went over the top, super overcharged. They were never going to get those things. But really, it was they just needed to get that shot, right? They needed the shots that they needed. They needed the raid. They needed to control the media with those stories. It was never going to go anywhere. He has a horrible track record. However, there were other cases where they really were trying to get him and make it work. So in looking at this, I look at everything. I look at what they did to General Flynn, what they did to you, what they did to Rudy Giuliani. A lot of times you were just very simple process things where they're just trying to jam people up and destroy their lives. And I don't know how much of that is going to happen this time around, but what do you think happens? Are these people going to get charged with seditious conspiracy? Is it going to be just simple perjury, 1001 violation? What do you think actually happens?
No, I think they're going to go for the very serious charges, the seditious conspiracy. Maybe, you might see an espionage type charge. And, espionage covers a lot of ground. It doesn't have to be like working with a foreign government, but I think that they're going to aim for the big players, the Hillary Clintons, the Barack Obamas, those type. I think they're going to go as hard as they can, or at least this would be my recommendation to them. Go as hard as you can for the biggest people and go until the left stops. Because there's two ways to solve this problem, right? If the left finally came out and said, you know what, we went overboard. And just to be clear, my case is still open. I'm still a criminal defendant along with, my 18 co-defendants. And
including
Michigan
President
is
Trump.
open. Well, President Trump's not in my case.
Okay.
But Georgia, the Georgia case is still open. Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, they're all still open. And so while they're crying about us prosecuting political opponents, they actually are right now.
Right.
And it's horrible what they're doing to people. Thankfully, the cases aren't going anywhere, but they're still making us go through this horrible process, labeling us all criminals and putting our mugshots everywhere. So I think what the two ways to solve this is the left can say, okay, we've all gone too far. Let's put our arms down, let's put our weapons down and stop, which I think is what everybody would prefer, right? But they're not doing that. They're doubling down and they're saying, we're going to come after you. We're going to, everybody keeps doubling down. And so what Pam Bondi needs to do is she needs to be prosecuting people until they agree to stop. And just keep going down the list, get the biggest players and keep going down the list until the left goes, okay, we'll stop. And until they agree to stop prosecuting us and stop coming after us, you keep prosecuting. That's, their dealer's choice. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Christina Bobb, indicted for being Trump's attorney. She's an attorney now with Judicial Watch. She's a criminal defendant, and I wish you good luck with your case. Former OAN reporter, veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and a heck of an author. The book is called Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. Christina Bobb, let everybody know how they get a copy of the book. I recommend getting 2 copies, one for yourself to read on the beach this summer and one to give away. Where do they go?
Yep, you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold. Its official release is September 9th, so you can pre-order now and get it on September 9th.
Outstanding. And if people want to follow you and know what's going on with your case, your career, and your work, where do they go?
I'm on social media at Christina_Bobb, or you can go to my website at ChristinaBobb.com, B-O-B-B, 2 B's.
Outstanding. Christina Bobb, you're a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. Godspeed to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You bet. And amigos, your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, everything else that we have to discuss is coming up straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if a viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back again. Getting to your calls momentarily. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Now, a couple of things I want to go over because, that's what we do here. Yesterday night, right after the show, in a very rare occurrence, I usually watch the most, I'm going to use the word fantastical, Hollywood, fake, super dramatic television I can find. Either reality TV that's just like over the top, or very, very, Blue Bloods kind of family-oriented, cop show. And there's a very left-leaning show, but I really enjoy it because the stunts are not great and the storylines are predictable, but I just enjoy it. With Queen Latifah. It's called The Equalizer, right? Used to have, I think it was Edward Woodward who used to be the Equalizer back in the days when I was a kid. My dad used to watch that show. And you've got Queen Latifah, who's now the Equalizer, former CIA, black ops type of person, retired, and she's become not a vigilante, but like a gun for hire, but she's free, right? They rob the bad guys, and they use that money to do these very complex operations to help people, regular people, that find her, and it's always an interesting thing. Anyway, so I'm watching, I usually watch that, but as I was scrolling to it, I saw that Colbert was on. So I stopped and I watched Colbert, and it was Fred Armisen from Saturday Night Live, and I always thought he was interesting because he's a musician and a comedian, and he was wrapping up something about a current project of his, but in the tease, Colbert says, all right, Fred Armisen, thanks for being here. And up next, J.B. Pritzker. And I said, J.B. Pritzker, why would he be on TV? And I said, he's running for president, right? Because this is the new DNC convention, right? You had Kamala Harris on the night before. Last night, J.B. Pritzker. I guess he's going to bring them all on so that everybody could see the Democrat candidates. And I'm looking at him, and he looks a little bit skinnier than he was the last time I saw him. So J.B. Pritzker losing a little weight, maybe trying to fill the gap that's being left by the leaderless Democrat National Committee and the field of players that are out there or not out there. So I have a clip of J.B. Pritzker, cut number 3, that he talks a little bit about this, and he's so over the top. Listen to this.
I think he literally called them or wrote them and said, hey, I need 5 seats. Go redraw this.
And the way they're doing it is...
Now, I want you to know that he says a number of things here. So as he says them, I'm just going to call them out. Go right ahead.
Is taking voting rights away from black and brown people. They're literally obliterating districts that were written according to the Voting Rights Act. So this is going to
Hold on a second. So he's saying what's happening in Texas is obliterating the voting rights of black and brown Americans by taking away districts. Now, I don't know what he's talking about, right? I think we're trying to add. We're trying to add districts. By adding districts, you're not taking away someone else's district. And my district was taken away, right, in Jersey. I used to be a part of one district, now part of another. I still vote in the same exact place. My congressional district number changed. There's one less congressperson because they merged 2 districts. It doesn't mean I don't get to vote. I mean, this man is very wealthy, but he's not very smart. Go ahead.
Court if they actually are able to do it. But the Texas House Democrats are trying to stop them from doing it, and they're in Illinois to protect all of the people of the country.
Now,
hold on right there. Hold on. Now, it's so nice that, you want to protect all of the people of the country, but there is a reality. When you are a member of the House of Representatives, you represent a specific district. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but they're not doing anything in Illinois. A bunch of Texans in Chicago, all they're doing is they're hanging out, right? They're on a free trip. They're doing their thing. It's vacation. It's summer break because they're in recess from Washington. They're not doing anything for the American people. All they can do is vote in Congress. But yet he makes stuff up as he goes along. So, yeah, you might have hit the gym. You might have lost 1 or 3 pounds. But right, you are not. Go ahead.
Wasn't that long ago, about an hour ago, we just found out that Senator Cornyn of Texas called on the FBI to round up the Democrats who had left the state. First of all, are you a lawyer?
Stand by. Hold on a second. Hold on. before he gets into whether J.B. Pritzker's a lawyer or not, a single senator from any state calling on the FBI. What does that mean? That means I call on the FBI to go after all the bad guys involved in the Russiagate hoax. All right, big whoop. So radio host Rich Valdez just said that. Senator John Cornyn just said that. These are words. This is not some sort of official action. The Texas senator is not in charge of the FBI. He makes it seem as if they're literally abusing government and weaponizing the power that they have to go after their political opponents. Excuse me, that's exactly what the Democrats did. Go right ahead.
I am.
Okay, see, how can the FBI do that? Is there some federal law that these people would be violating?
They've not broken any federal law, and frankly, in the state of Illinois, we're not going to let them get taken away. We're going to protect those Texas House Democrats.
Yeah.
The only thing that's happened is a civil warrant was issued by the Republican Speaker of the House in Texas in order to take away the Democrats, right? And a civil warrant isn't worth anything in the state of Illinois. So as long as they're in Illinois, they're safe.
Oh, they're safe in Texas too, bro. Come on. Who are we kidding? These people are politicians that are under arrest or have a warrant for their arrest for not showing up to work. The minute they show up to work, they're going to be fine. Governor Abbott is not going to slap, I don't believe he's going to slap handcuffs on anybody, right? This is all procedural because he only has but so much. Now, I know somebody's listening going, Rich, come on, you got to toughen up, grow a spine. You got to lock these people up, make an example, show them, teach them a lesson. Are you kidding me? Just imagine the sitting governor saying, yeah, we're going to lock up Jasmine Crockett. Do you know how much she would milk that? All of that video of her in handcuffs with her pretty eyelashes, strutting herself in handcuffs. This would help her more than hurt her. Folks, I'm coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos. Now, if your radio station locally is not carrying the show for another hour, that's shame on you. But for those of you that are, you can call in right now, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to St. Augustine, Florida. Walter, WFOY. Go right ahead.
Hey, again, Rich. Great interview tonight with New York City's next mayor. And, Rich, if Curtis can visit all 77 police precincts in the 5 boroughs, I think they'd all 34,000 police officers and their wives, significant others, and friends. That's hundreds of thousands of votes for mayor. And you heard tonight Curtis can speak and knows every little neighborhood in the 5 boroughs. And Mad Dammy, he knows jack about that. Rich?
Yeah, listen, Walter, you're 100% right. I think that when I've been, I've known Curtis for some years. And when I walk around, and he's not lying, Curtis will be like, hey, let's take a walk. And then the next thing you know, you're on the subway. And you end up somewhere. And wherever I've been with him, people pull him over. They want to take pictures. Cops, the top brass, you name it. They like Curtis. They love Curtis. So he's got a lot of momentum, but we got to get him over the finish line. Thank you for the call, Walter. God bless you. WFOY in the building. Amigos, we continue the conversation straight ahead. Open phones across America is coming up. Plus, we've got a lot more to discuss, so keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome back. We're at it again, another hour. We're live, we're national. Wednesday night edition of the program. Here's the phone number if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And some breaking news. Yep. Secretary Rubio says that Special Envoy Witkoff is returning with a proposal for a Russia-Ukraine ceasefire. President Trump signaling earlier that he may be meeting with both Zelensky and Putin as soon as Thursday. We'll see if that's actually a thing. But Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying earlier that U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff is back with a framework for a plan, saying, quote, the specific timing of it is not discussed, but there's intention. He went on to say, I think that what we have is a better understanding of the conditions under which Russia would be prepared to end the war. We now have to compare that to what the Ukrainians and our European allies have, but the Ukrainians primarily, of course, are willing to accept it. Witkoff has been gleaning information from talks in Russia as the Kremlin advances strikes on Kyiv and surrounding cities. And this is, again, they say it's Witkoff in Russia, and maybe it is. No discredit to him. I'm not trying to discount him. I'm going to say Trump just tariffed the crap out of India, saying stop buying Russian oil. Last week, Trump made the European Union sign a deal with them where they agreed to buy $750 billion worth of, or $600 billion worth of energy, oil, natural gas, from the United States and not from Russia. That's a lot of money. How much more does Russia withstand, right? Do they just keep... At some point, they got to go, hold on a second. You're taking all of our business. You're taking all of our customers. Like I said, Trump's really good at hitting people in the pocketbook and saying, hey, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. You got something I want. I got something you want. Let's make a deal. And I think that's what we have. What we now have is leverage. What we didn't have before was leverage. So having that leverage that he's created recently seems to me working so fast that they're saying that there's a potential ceasefire on the table. And again, we've heard that before, so I'm not going to do any backflips. And I know that we can't trust either one of these parties, honestly. They don't seem to play too nice in the sandbox. But thankfully, there's a framework. Now, another quote here from Rubio. Obviously, the Ukrainians have a say in this. We've got to bring the two sides and two positions close enough so that the ultimate closer, President Trump, can get involved and actually make it happen. And again, Trump signaled that he could hold direct in-person talks with Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to achieve the administration's goal of ending the conflict. So, listen, this would be great. Great feather in the cap for El Trompito, and more than anything, it's great to see people stop dying, right? I mean, that's I think, a good thing. So kudos to our producer, Mr. Hinton, for sending this over to me. And, of course, kudos to the administration for, doing what they're doing to end this war. Sounds like a good thing. It would be a great thing to end the war. Now, something else I wanted to get into, immigration, right? You've got ICE giving $50,000 signing bonuses to anybody that will join ICE. And I'm going to play a clip of audio for you in a moment. President Trump also weighing in today on this shooting. Of course, there was a shooting at a military base in Georgia. This Army-based shooting, again, we don't know the motive. I have my own speculations, but we know who did it. We know that he used his own gun to do it. And President Trump weighed in on this. Check this out.
Before we begin, I'd like to say a few words about the shooting at Fort Stewart in Georgia. As you know, 5 people were seriously wounded and 2 very, very seriously hurt around 11 o'clock this morning. The shooter is now in custody, and the Army Criminal Investigation Division is on site to ensure that the perpetrator of this atrocity, which is exactly what it is, will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The entire nation is praying for the victims and their families. and hopefully they'll fully recover, and we can put this chapter behind, but we're not going to forget what happened. We're going to take very good care of this person that did this horrible person.
That again, President Trump addressing the shooting in Georgia earlier today at the military base. Now, something I want to talk about, I mentioned it in the previous iterations of our program about ICE giving $50,000 signing bonuses to attract the best talent. And now we can say it's a bird, it's a plane. Nope. Is it Superman? No, it's an ICE agent. It's Dean Cain, the actor who played Clark Kent on television. He's now announcing that he's joined ICE, and he's calling fellow Americans to do the same. Listen to this. Dean Cain.
Here. And for those who don't know, I am a sworn law enforcement officer as well as being a filmmaker. I felt it was important to join with our first responders to help secure the safety of all Americans, not just talk about it. So I joined up. And here's your opportunity to join ICE. You can earn lots of great benefits and pay. Yet since President Trump took office, ICE has arrested hundreds of thousands of criminals, including terrorists, rapists, murderers, pedophiles, MS-13 gang members, drug traffickers, you name it. Very dangerous people who are no longer on the streets. You can defend your homeland and get great benefits like a $50,000 signing bonus. Think about that. Student loan repayment legally, enhanced retirement benefits, and special pay for those in the field operations and law enforcement roles. I don't get that special pay, but you also don't need an undergraduate degree. You can get to work right away. So if you want to help save America, ICE is arresting the worst of the worst and removing them from America's streets. I like that. I voted for that. They need your help. We need your help to protect our homeland and our families. So check into it, as I said, and join today if it's something that tickles your fancy, because we can use you.
Again, Superman there telling you to join ICE. And again, that was a part of the big, beautiful bill. So what can we expect? Well, we can expect, I think, a lot more action, right? More of the same. Lately, what we've seen is that there is no immigration problem anymore, right? Nobody's coming across that border. It's tight, it's sealed, it's secure. What we do know is that we have people that were let into the interior of the country and they have to be removed. So there's a lot of enforcement and removal operations going on. And I think we're going to see more of that as well. So more of the same is not a bad thing in this situation. And I'm hopeful that we'll see more of Dean Cain and his very public persona as he moves forward with his work with ICE. And I want to talk about something that every now and again we talk about. You know, the left loves to throw these terms around. Dark money, dark money. Well, dark money is a real thing, and it's how oftentimes a lot of people on the left do what they do. Soros, etc., right? There's a lot of people that work that way. And I want to talk about a book that talks about dark money, talks about how leftist billionaires are secretly transforming America. And I want to do that straight ahead. So keep it locked right here. Plus, we're going to get to your calls. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Taxpayer dollars funded questionable projects abroad, including a transgender comic book in Peru and millions for Sesame Street in Iraq. Republicans say this is part of a broader left-wing agenda, wasting government resources.
Tempers flared during a Judiciary Committee hearing Tuesday as House Republicans accused left-leaning nonprofits of misusing tax dollars.
Radical open border
activities, billions and billions of dollars for that. And I think, as the chairman mentioned, our favorite, of course, is Sesame Street in Iraq. Bert and Ernie, Big Bird in Baghdad. Wow, what a great use of taxpayer dollars.
A transgender comic book in Peru. Because we don't have needs in our country, right? We've got money to fund a transgender comic book in Peru.
Republicans are calling it a nonprofit cartel, saying federal grants are being handed out with little oversight, and warning some of that money is even being used to influence foreign governments like Hungary.
It was meant to do regime change in a NATO ally, and a very key NATO ally. That was unconscionable.
That's Jenny Bowens of CBS News reporting on this movement of money. And the Doge service put a lot of this to bed. And, of course, we're still having hearings on this as oversight is looking into it. But it raises the question of where is all this money coming from? Where is it going? Who's paying for all these things? And how are the billionaires involved? What are they doing with their money, moving it around to get a lot of these things to actually happen? So I want to get to the bottom of that with our guest. Scott Walter, is with us. He's president of Capital Research Center. He's a former special assistant to the President of the United States for domestic policy in the Bush administration. And he's got a book, Arabella, The Dark Money Network of Leftist Billionaires Secretly Transforming America. Scott Walter, welcome.
Great to be with you, Rich.
You bet. Thank you. And I want to get into this because, we've mentioned Doge, we've mentioned billionaires and dark money, and we've talked about all sorts of transgender stuff in different countries in the world. And I think most people listening to this think, what does any of that have to do with me, and why are my tax dollars funding it? Scott Walter.
An eminently reasonable question. And by the way, may I brag about my research team? We are the ones who uncovered the Arabic Elmo even before Trump was sworn in. And it was December of 2024 that we had that. And then in December 2023, we had identified, we did a story at that point on all of the existing trans funding in the Biden administration. And we also included the opera in Colombia that you paid for. The trans opera.
Right.
Trans opera in Colombia, which I'm sure the Colombians were thrilled to have that. I mean, that's a real brilliant diplomacy. That's right. What your average Colombian mom and dad, want to see. Take the kiddies to. It again takes the breath away, right? It's outrageous that the money was spent, and it's unbelievably stupid to consider this as wonderful foreign policy for America.
Scott Walter, how did we end up in this place, or was it always like this and we're just finding out about it?
Well, it's not brand new by any means, and so there have been horrible foreign funding and domestic funding for ages. But it has just gotten worse and worse. The one thing that has changed is you finally have an administration that is willing to dig into this, expose it, and turn off those spigots of your federal cash.
Well, thank God for that. And this is, I think, in particular, particularly infuriating to, I think, people that are obviously paying taxes, but those of us that don't really subscribe to these crazy things and thinking there's nothing wrong with Arabic Elmo as long as I'm not paying for it. How do these people justify all of these odd programs?
Well, of course, it's always for the common good, please, and we're signaling our virtue here by supporting this, and in fact, not only are they justifying it, you remember they're suing, right? Well, we were trying to capture all of the lawsuits against the Trump administration, but it's north of 200 now. So it's literally become almost impossible to track how many lawsuits there are, and most of the lawsuits are, "Give me my money back! Give me my money back!" What do you mean you're not going to give me every penny? Right? So remember, in Washington, you have your shame removed before you are allowed to enter the Beltway.
Yeah. I'm reading this packet that your team sent over, and there's one sentence that I could not say better than it's written, and it talks about billions of dollars flowing to organizations that aren't NGOs, which is Washington speak for non-governmental organizations, otherwise known as nonprofits. No, these groups are really BGOs, basically government organizations. And I think that's really it, right? People think that we have this network of non-governmental organizations, but they actually are extensions of the government, and they look like they're not. They purport to be independent, but in fact, they're not. In many ways, I think they're just money laundering. What say you?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And first of all, just to scare you, there are over 35,000 nonprofits in America that get most of their money from government. Okay, that's the first thing to scare you. And then, and the second thing is, it's often the most unbelievable cronyism. Probably the worst of all the slush funds to NGOs in the last administration. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which was around $27 billion, right? And then that money got further distributed to additional NGOs, because part of the scheme is, you got entire networks of stuff, so it makes the money harder to trace. It makes it harder for somebody like me to explain to other people. But of that $27 billion, a couple of billion ended up in a brand new NGO that had $100 in its bank account. But what it did have was ties to Stacey Abrams, the failed gubernatorial candidate, Democrat operative, and the rest. So how would you like to start a business, have $100 in your bank account, and get $2 billion from Uncle Sam?
Sign me up. Where do I put my John Hancock? Amigos, we are on with Scott Walter. He's president of the Capital Research Center. He served as a special assistant for domestic policy to the President of the United States in the Bush administration, George W. Bush administration. And he's got an amazing book. It's called Arabella, the Dark Money Network of Leftist Billionaires Secretly Transforming America. And I want to talk about this dark money network and Arabella, and we've talked about that in the past, but I want to get a little update on it and really get the scoop on everything that's going on, because this stuff is, it's really in your face, and thankfully we've tackled some of it, but I feel like we're only scratching the surface. So Scott Walter, stick with us. We're coming right back. He's president at Capital Research, and I'm Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
Groundbreaking moment for LGBTQIA rights and support. New York City has opened the doors to the very first city-funded homeless shelter in the United States, designed specifically for transgender and gender nonconforming individuals. This new facility, called Ace's Place, is being hailed as a major step forward in addressing the unique risks and challenges faced by trans people who find themselves without stable housing. Located in the vibrant Long Island City neighborhood in Queens, Ace's Place marks a new chapter in how major urban centers can support marginalized communities in need. The shelter is managed by Destination Tomorrow, a well-known LGBTQ nonprofit organization based in the Bronx. The facility was named in honor of the late mother of Destination Tomorrow's founder and CEO, Sean Ebony Coleman, whose impact and legacy inspired the project and its mission. What sets Ace's Place apart is not just its targeted approach, but also its significant capacity. The shelter can provide beds for up to 150 people, dramatically increasing the city's ability to serve transgender and gender nonconforming residents.
That's a report from Fact It. And again, New York City launching the first in the nation ever city-funded shelter for transgender community. Now, pay attention. This is New York City. They're doing this now. When I tell you that Mamdani is no different than Eric Adams, than Cuomo, they're all the same, birds of a feather flock together. This is what you can expect with more Mamdani. Just more and worse. Now, this is so reminiscent of what we're talking about. We're talking about Arabic Elmo, right? Elmo in Iraq. We're talking about all of this money moving around in odd ways for weird programs and promoting things that are, I would say, inconsistent or incongruent with the mainstream of American society. Yet, here we are looking at this stuff that's being funded in New York City. And to me, it's part of a bigger problem, and that's why I want to talk to Scott Walter. He's our guest. He's standing by. He's with us. And Scott Walter is, again, president of Capital Research Center. He was a special assistant to the President of the United States for Domestic Policy, President George W. Bush. He's the author of the book Arabella, The Dark Money Network of Leftist Billionaires Secretly Transforming America. And I want to continue this discussion on how these liberal nonprofits, NGOs, are taking advantage of U.S. taxpayers. And in particular, how they move the money around. Scott Walter, welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me, Rich.
So let's take it from any one of those angles because you've got your finger on the pulse here, and I know you have a lot of information and data.
Well, the amount of taxpayer dollars going out, as I said, have only just been. The government is only finally starting to actually pay attention to where it sends your money. And that's been the great achievement of DOGE. And there's also a DOGE subcommittee in the House, which has been jumping on this. And they were kind enough to have me testify not too long ago. And other committees in the House and Senate have also been having hearings about these things. There's such an enormous pile of these grants and contracts to the NGOs or BGOs, basically government organizations, as you rightly said, that it's wonderful to see. But the Congress is going to have to get its act together as well, because while the administration can do something to cut off these spigots of your tax dollars, there need to be serious changes in the way the government's organized and in limitations on these kinds of grants, and also transparency, because the grants are not. It's not just the government gives a grant to a group, as we said earlier, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Well, they gave that thing money, and then it started handing out money. That's the kind of problem you get to as well. I'll give you an example that I used in one of my testimonies. The Centers for Disease Control give out grants for AIDS education. And so they gave a grant to the Philadelphia School District, right? Now, that's another government entity, but a city government entity in Philadelphia. And guess what good old Philadelphia School District did? It handed the money to the local Planned Parenthood to educate kids about gender ideology, right? Wow. So you see what a trail that is, though, right? It's the Centers for Disease Control, and then this, and then this, and there's very little transparency on these kinds of things. And again, who is ever going to, untangle this mess?
Scott Walter, I want you to tell us in the few minutes we have remaining about your book, Arabella, The Dark Money Network of Leftist Billionaires Secretly Transforming America. Why did you choose that namesake?
Well, probably very few of your listeners have ever heard of Arabella Advisors, but they are a for-profit DC consulting firm, or Beltway Bandit, as they're called, and they run a network of nonprofits that in turn concoct hundreds and hundreds of fake groups like Secure Michigan Elections and Floridians for a Fair Shake and Keep Iowans Healthy and all. And they want you to think that when you see, when a Facebook ad pops up in your feed, from one of those groups or whatever, they want you to think it's some of your neighbors who are upset about something, when in fact it's some doofus in D.C. at his desk who's created a website and bought Facebook ads thanks to a nice grant they got from Bill Gates or George Soros or Zuckerberg or on and on.
Or the CDC.
And it's quite a scam. Or the CDC. Interestingly, Arabella has not taken much much government money itself, and I think that it's nonprofits haven't. I think the reason for that is they discovered, oh God, you do have to submit a special audit if you get federal grants, and I suspect they did not want that to happen.
Scott Walter,
but,
President.
As I said,
go ahead.
I was going to say those billionaires are, sadly, those billionaires are as big a problem as the U.S. government when it comes to crazy nonprofits doing bad things for the country.
Give me an example.
Well, if you remember the Brett Kavanaugh fight for the Supreme Court, right? Brutal, vicious, horrible thing. Well, it was led by something called Demand Justice, which was at the time exactly one of those fake groups Arabella had just spun up out of nothing. And it was literally the ringleader for the entire left, savaging Kavanaugh. Now, they moved on to other things. Stephen Breyer was a Democrat appointee on the court, but he was getting long in the tooth, and they wanted to shove him off so that there'd be a younger replacement for him, and they got that. That was Ketanji Brown Jackson. So the same Arabella group was running billboards around D.C., mobile billboards saying, Breyer's too old, he's got to go. And then, of course, they had, in the White House counsel's office, they had one of their alumni sitting there choosing judges, including the genius Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Wow. You can't make this stuff up. Scott, I want you to tell everybody how they get a copy of this book.
Amazon or Barnes & Noble, anywhere you get books, should have it, and it's Arabella.
Arabella, the dark money network of leftist billionaires secretly transforming America. Scott Walter, president of Capital Research Center, former special assistant to the President of the United States. I want to thank you for being here and bringing us up to speed, and thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Bet. Amigos, we continue with your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, and so much more straight ahead. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Yeah, right.
You have given us the voice of hope. You give us hope, and we thank you so much for that. You make things seem brighter.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez, and we're going to get to your calls, 833-482-5337. I want to know your thoughts on everything that's going on in America at night, and I want to go to South Carolina, WTMA, check in with our buddy Jerome from Charleston, South Carolina. Jerome, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Hey, Nancy Mace, the bereaved rape victim who was raped by her boyfriend and two other men, where's the proof? I was wondering, she's running for governor. How many is she going to have to give Trump to get his endorsement?
Oh, geez. Now, listen. This is so far afield from okay. I'm not going to question anybody who's saying that they've been raped. B, I think her and Trump have a good professional relationship. While they've had a lot of incident, I think that she did end up endorsing him. So it would make sense to me that he would support this bid. I wouldn't put it past her, but I think it makes sense that she's running for governor. She's going to run it by the president, who's got the most popularity and the massive ability to raise money. Now, again, I don't know, but I'm looking at a headline here in Associated Press, so not my side of the aisle. Congresswoman Nancy Mace kicks off gubernatorial bid. She says she's Trump in high heels. What do you think of that?
Does she like to grab women by...
Oh, my goodness. Come on. What do FCC Chairman Brendan Carr is going to come and get you, bro. And he's going to be like, oh, you got to stop talking all that smack on the radio. Jerome in Charleston, South Carolina. Thanks for the call, brother. Man, he's wild tonight. Wild for the night. Anyway, we're going to continue with the rest of your calls and more straight ahead. But first, I want you to hear something because, again, a lot of things happening today in the media. And one of the things that I thought was kind of wild that was going on in the media was Paul Begala. I don't know if you remember him, but he's a talking head on CNN. And he was on TV yesterday saying that the midterms are going to be an earthquake where Democrats win 40 seats in a landslide. And I'm thinking, if they're going to win that much, why don't we have a clear front runner of who's running for president? Listen to this.
Remember last week there was a terrible earthquake off the coast of Russia, and then it took a long, long time before tsunami waves hit. Fortunately, I don't think anybody was hurt. This is an earthquake. This is coming. The Republicans are looking at a wave election against them. This is what happened the last time. 2017, they cut taxes for the rich and just tried to cut Obamacare, to end Obamacare, and they failed. They lost 41 House seats in the next election. This combination, this bill, where they cut taxes for the rich, exploded the debt, and cut health care for working people, that's not going to fly, man. That's just not. We're both 454 days away. It's a long time. But I'm telling you, these people who think, oh, it's 4 or 5 seats here, it's going to be a 40-seat landslide, and the Republicans in the Congress, I think, know it.
Again, that's Paul Begala. Where he gets that information from, I don't know. I guess smack talking is an art, right? I guess it's an art, and maybe he's an artist because I don't see that happening. Now, again, it doesn't mean it may not happen. Anything's possible, right? That's a lifetime away. But to sit here right now as Trump's doing pretty good with his favorables, the Democrats are doing horrible with their unfavorable rating, and to sit here and say they're going to pick up 40 seats, based on what? What would do that? What would possess you to think that that's a thing? I don't see it happening at all. Anyway, I'm going to get to your calls. We've got calls from all over. Let's see. Well, I'm going to take a pause and then come to your calls. 833-482-5337. Next up is our buddy Pops in Atlantic City on 1400 WOND. And I'm Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
After the guest leaves every night, we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. You sit there in this radio studio, and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
If we fail, the consolidation of authoritarian power in America will be nearly unstoppable. That means more masked, plainclothes federal agents without badges or warrants sweeping our fellow Americans up off the streets. It means more retribution and persecution and even violence for Trump's political opponents. And it also means that a Republican majority Congress with these 5 stolen seats, if we allow them to succeed, will roll out the royal red carpet for a Trump third term. So this is literally for all the marbles, and it comes down to what is happening in Texas right now. So wherever you live around the country, you have a vested interest in these 56 Texas Democrats succeeding right now. So we need your help.
That is Beto O'Rourke. Remember Robert O'Rourke? I do. And he was on CNN today saying all of that stuff. If we fail in Texas, we'll have a dictatorship and a third term of Trump. Now, obviously, Trump's not coming back for a third term, but that doesn't mean Beto's not going to try and scare all of his friends into thinking that he is and trying to get his way here. Funny stuff, I think. Good old Beto O'Rourke. Now, I thought he was gone for good after he made all those crazy comments on guns and whatnot, but Beto O'Rourke is trying to scare you into submission here, saying that Trump is the dictator, and I think that that's kind of wild. But I want to know what your thoughts are. Let's hit the phones on this. 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. Is Trump a dictator? I say no. What say you? Pops, Atlantic City, New Jersey, WOND. Go right ahead.
No, absolutely not. Okay, Beto O'Rourke should get on his little skateboard and drive off into oblivion. It must be election time.
Yeah, that's funny.
Absolutely ridiculous. You know, I dealt with the Trump organization for years from a labor perspective, and good people to deal with. The sons, the father. They always came up with decent contracts where other places wouldn't. Okay, I dealt with the government for many years, working with grants and so forth from a labor organization. I can tell you, in 2006, I met Barack Obama. It was like meeting a jellyfish. Shaking his hand, he didn't even look you in the eye.
Well, tell us a little bit about each of those. I'd love to hear the juxtaposition. So you meet Obama, and he's got a limp-wristed type of greeting. What were you guys? Was he building a casino?
First of all, I thought he was a Freemason. I was talking about training and dollars for training and creating apprentice programs. And basically, I thought it came off as he could care less. Okay, for 15 minutes. Really aggravated me because the economy was teeter-tottering. And you had the opportunity to get people into different jobs, apprentice programs, whether it's construction, whether it's the hospitality, and it went in one ear and out the other. And they, from that point forward, they collapsed to where they are now. Now you got guys like Mike Rowe pushing for him, and I hope the Trump organization picks up on it. That's where our new wave of workers is going to come from.
Now, and you're saying your experience in working with Trump and Eric and Don Jr. was drastically different.
Drastically different, okay? And people got to realize that. They knew how to negotiate contracts. They were hard, tough-nosed people. Some didn't like them. Some people, were arrogant. The first time I ever met Trump was he came to Atlantic City, and he came in a restaurant and was sitting down, and he said it was with his Ivanka, and he goes, "Hi, I'm Donald Trump." And I said, "Hello, how you doing?" And at the time, and he goes, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, you hear from me." Within about 3 years from that, he went into building the Trump Plaza in Atlantic City.
Look at that. What a story. Pops in Atlantic City, 1400 WOND, Jersey in the building. KDKA, I didn't hear from you tonight. California, New York, where you at? Anyway, I'm out of here, but we're doing it again. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.